Hello and welcome to another episode of My Favourite Game from the Honest Football Podcast.
Yes, so on the show this week, and I cannot believe we're saying this, we've got former Premier League and Football League referee Bobby Madley, who comes on to talk about his favourite ever football match. And obviously being an elite level referee, he has a lot to choose from. But actually not just as a referee, and I think that's what's quite fascinating about this interview, and it's why it's one of my favourite interviews, is just that you get to see both sides of the game, you know, with Bobby, and as a football fan and as a referee. And I think that sometimes I'm guilty of it as much as the next football fan, of blurring the lines between the two. And actually, you know, referees are football fans, that you wouldn't do it if you weren't. So it's a fantastic, fascinating interview. It's a really good insight, actually, to a man that I think has an undoubted love of the game, and I'm just really pleased to share this with you. So I can't speak highly enough of Bobby. He's been, you know, a gent throughout the whole process, and that comes across, I feel, in the interview. So yeah, just really sit back, enjoy listening to someone who's worked at the very, very top of the game, because it's a fascinating insight from him. Okay, enjoy.
And don't forget, if you'd like to be part of this favourite game series, just give us a message at Honest Football 3.
Hello, yeah, so I can't really believe I'm actually saying this, but we've got former Premier League referee Bobby Madley on the show with us this week. So, Bobby, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
A bit starstruck, but yeah. So, yeah, just really, Bobby, just to sort of kick off, obviously people would know you from, you know, obviously being in the Premier League as a referee, but what to start with really was just more about you as a football fan, you know, because obviously I imagine to get to the level that you get to, you've got to love football as well. So, yeah, just sort of tell us a bit about your background, you know, from maybe childhood about football and that sort of thing, really.
Yeah, of course you do, mate. I think there's a bit of a misconception that referees, you know, just rock up on a weekend just to spoil people's day and then go home again and take no care. We are football fans. We're all football fans. I grew up watching Huddersfield, so I've got my dad to blame for that. I actually had a quick flick back through because I kept programmes and everything else when I were sort of growing up. So I know my first game watching Huddersfield were 1990, so I was 4-year-old then. It was just before my 5th birthday, actually. It must have been some sort of sadistic birthday present to me. To watch Huddersfield beat Exeter that day 1-0, and I think it was the old Leeds Road ground, and we stood on the East Stand Terrace. My brother Andy had been going to watch games for a couple of years, and I remember you know, sort of looking out and wanting to go, and I guess my time came that day. So, to see Huddersfield win, I guess I fell in love with it then, so I caught the bug. And yeah, I grew up watching Huddersfield all over the country. You know, going on the supporters bus to Plymouth on a Tuesday night, and, you know, maybe having a dentist appointment meant I had to leave school a little bit early, you know, that sort of thing. But
yeah, nothing wrong with that at all.
Always made sure we were there. But yeah, we just a massive football fan, mate, in general. And as I said, grew up watching Huddersfield.
So what league were they when you first went to watch them then? So what would that been, like you say, 1990-ish?
Yeah, so they would have been 3rd division then, so what's now League One. So they spent most of my life they spent in League One, so or, you know, the Division 3 or whatever we were at that time. And then, to see them come through and end up in the Premier League for the last few years was pretty insane as a fan. So, yeah, that was an interesting time, but I think we're steadily making his way back to where I started watching him.
Yeah, I think it probably means a bit more though, doesn't it? When, you know, for example, if you support Huddersfield and they end up going, you know, when they do make it to the Premier League, if you've been there and you've seen the days, like you say, where you're sort of playing against Exeter in the pouring rain or whatever it is, you know, that suddenly that means a lot more, doesn't it? When you get to, say, play United at home or something like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know when I was refereeing, I used to drive home. You know, I'd have 606 on in the car and listening to the fans calling in, and it used to annoy me a little bit because I'd be listening to fans of generally sort of the top 6 teams, the Arsenals, and to hear fans phoning in saying, "Oh, people don't know how difficult it is to support us. The football we're playing is terrible," and I'm thinking, do you know what? I grew up going to Boston United on a Tuesday watching my team, and if you want to dish out what's tough to watch as a football fan, that's pretty difficult. That's up there. So yeah, it used to it give you a much more interesting perspective, I think, watching a team coming through the levels like that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that, without going too far ahead, did that sort of impact you as, you know, when you then eventually went to referee, say, in the Premier League, etc.? Did that, you know, having that sort of grounding almost of, you know, that there's football outside of this sort of bubble, does that help you in a sense or not?
Yeah, I think it probably does. You know, I mean, my first Football League game was I refereed at Bury. Sadly, not a football team now in the Football League. But, refereed at Bury against Port Vale. And to me, walking out onto that game, I actually think had I have been a supporter of one of the top Premier League teams, as a professional achievement, it would have meant a lot to me. But walking out in front of, I don't know how many were there that day, 4,000 something, I assume. I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant to those fans. I knew how the Port Vale fans felt travelling to an away game and that buzz that they had watching their team. So I knew, even though it was a League Two game, I knew how much it meant to those supporters, and that I could sort of relate to that a little bit. So it meant a lot to me to be able to be involved in that football as well. So that probably did help, to be honest, a little bit, because I think the danger is, and I genuinely don't think there's any referees who feel this way. In fact, the vast majority of them support teams outside of the Premier League, actually.
Right.
But I do think it gives you that understanding of, it's not just all about the Premier League. 1% of the football in the country is played in the Premier League. So outside of that, every game is just as important. Whether it's, your local Sunday team, that game to them is just as important as it is to Man City and Liverpool walking out last week. The 3 points to them is just as important. So as a ref, you learn to respect that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting you say that, because a lot of the sort of content that we have on our podcast is not really, because there's so much about the Premier League. We, we're from Luton, so, that sort of area. So, obviously not really a top team as such. So, that sort of thing in the sense of, that what it means that actually for some teams, just beating sort of your local derby is almost as much as, say, getting to an FA Cup, not an FA Cup final, but getting to the Premier League in that sense. It does mean more almost in some cases, doesn't it? So
absolutely,
I think it's amazing. Do you know what? I know it's difficult to understand. You'd obviously know a million times better than me, but it's quite nice to hear that, in terms of being an official, obviously people forget that you have the same emotions as a football fan, don't you? And obviously to experience through the leagues, just to see that side of it, I think it's fascinating. Actually, it's really interesting to hear that even refereeing a League Two game. No, but I know it sounds silly, but from our sort of perspective, actually, that means more or almost as much as sort of being, involved in the Premier League as such. So that's But no. So just moving on a little bit then, in terms of going as you got a bit older, obviously following Huddersfield, did you ever get a chance to referee a game, or is that sort of something you're not allowed to do? Do you have to declare who you support almost when you become a professional? So
you have to declare the team that you support. You have to declare any teams that you played for as a youth player, any teams that your family members are or have been season ticket holders of. So it's pretty robust, the checks on the referees, and that's not because we don't trust the referees to go out there and do an honest job. Basically, what it does mean is that you're not going to get any accusations from press. Nobody's going to dig out, oh, hang on, his Auntie Mary was a Hartlepool season ticket holder once, and he's given a penalty to Hartlepool. It just cuts any of that out. So for us, it's just, we don't feel it questions our integrity. And if anything, it's quite nice to be able to say, yeah, I do support a football team, because then people understand that you're a football fan.
Yeah.
There are a lot of countries around Europe where you will ask referees, oh, who's your team? Who do you support? Oh, I don't support a team. And they do. Of course they do. You don't get into football unless you have a team. But they won't do it because of that sort of fear of integrity. Whereas I think in England, the referees are a lot more open about that. We have a little bit of banter between each other when our teams are playing against each other, and it's quite nice. It's nice to be able to do it. But yeah, we're not allowed to referee our team that we support.
No, fair enough. I mean, why did you go into refereeing in the first place? I know you probably get asked that loads, but I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction once you sort of get going. So yeah, but why sort of initially was that sort of in that sense? Yeah,
I played until I was 16 at a reasonably good level, and I kind of sort of two ways really. One, I was a little bit arrogant as a player. I thought I knew everything about the game, and this referee he refed us every week when I played for my local team. So I did play academy football, but when I went playing back for my local team, we had the same guy refereeing us every week. And he just pulled us one day, and I obviously talked nonsense to him most of the time. And he just challenged me and said, look, you're a good player. You've got a bit of a chip on the shoulder. You think you know everything. Go take a referee's course. And if you can qualify as a referee, you can say what you want to me, because then at least you'll know the laws of the game.
Right.
And probably a little bit through arrogance. I took him up on his challenge. No intention ever to referee a game of football, none at all. And I took my brother along to that as well. So that used to be like, nowadays it's very practical. You're outdoors, you're blowing whistles. When I did it, you were sat in like a a smoky pub for 8 weeks, 2 hours at a time. You read the laws of the game, you do an exam on it, and suddenly you qualified as a ref. So the first time I blew a whistle was my first game when I was 16-year-old. So, yeah, so I took him up on his challenge, probably through arrogance. As I said, Andy came along with me to keep me company. He certainly had no intention of refereeing. He didn't want to do that. And he refs on the Premier League now. So it worked out all right, to be fair. That little arrogance and calling him out worked out all right.
Well, the reason I ask is, I did a referee's course when I was about 15, 16, which sounds identical sort of to you in the sense of didn't actually go outside until your first game. Yeah. I lasted all of about 9 months and then sort of dragged it in. But the reason I sort of asked is because you sort of come from a teaching background yourself, and I'm a teacher at the minute. And obviously part of that role is about sort of patience, conflict management and all of that. Do you sort of feel like that's maybe something that not that it's a natural sort of thing, but I suppose, some people are teachers, some aren't, some people are referees. And is it something that you sort of already have that maybe just lends itself well to being, an elite sort of referee or even a qualified teacher in that sense, between the...
Yeah, I think so. I think there has to be... I think authority is one of those things that you can teach it and teach it and teach it, but I think you have to have that little element of confidence and authority about a referee to do it. Now, you don't have to be 6'2" to do that. I was fortunate when I was 16, I was over 6 foot, so I probably didn't look 16. But, and maybe you do have to work a little bit harder if you're a small guy or a small girl. Maybe you do. I think that's probably just human nature that you do. But there are some outstanding referees who are not 6'2". So it doesn't have to be a natural physical authority. But I do think you need to have that confidence on the pitch to be close to arrogant, but not quite go over that stretch. You've got to have that self-confidence that when 11 people are saying you are wrong, you've got to have that. When you know you're correct, you've got to have that confidence in yourself not to be swayed by that. And it's no surprise that a lot of referees, both in England and abroad, come from teaching backgrounds, police backgrounds. Anthony Taylor in the Premier League was a prison officer. So again, they're people who were in positions of authority in their everyday life, and that probably helped them to transfer those skills over to refereeing as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I think even, I was teaching today and there was times when I sort of felt like, you are being set upon by lots of people. So yeah, is having that patience to deal with it, isn't it? So, no, I think that's fascinating actually. And I think recently we actually had a policeman who was doing like a careers talk with some of the kids at school. But he actually said about some of the teachers, quite often similar to what you were saying, that teachers end up making good policemen. But I should have said to him that policemen eventually could make good referees as well. So, in that sense. But yeah, no, the next thing I wanted to sort of move on to really quickly was just, obviously you've refed through from, League Two. Well, before that, obviously, in terms of professionally from League Two to the Premier League. Yeah. I know there's probably obvious differences, but is there any sort of more humorous, subtle differences, say, between refereeing in League Two compared to the Premier League? Because we do a lot of sort of focus on the lower leagues in football, and you must get, you must have seen some sites maybe at the lower down at the ladder that maybe you wouldn't necessarily see at the Etihad or something like that, So
yeah, I think the main difference from a referee perspective is the speed of the game in the Premier League is obviously much quicker. So you don't really have time to build a relationship on the pitch with players. You can talk to them, you can have a bit of banter with them, but the game moves that quick. And the moment that player speaks to the referee and the ball's in play, he's suddenly 10 metres away from the guy that he should be marking. So Premier League players, they have to be switched on all the time to that. Right. League Two is a great level of football to referee. It's a harder level in terms of physicality. You probably run a lot more as a referee on a League Two game. The long balls are played a little bit more. The pitches can be a little heavier sometimes. The one thing you find in League Two, though, is obviously you have a lot more English players play at League Two than they do in the Premier League. So you have guys who you can have some really good sort of banter with on the pitch. And I really enjoyed refereeing at those levels. Conference level was probably, for me, it's probably the most physical level of football in the country. And it's probably the best in terms of being able to give a little bit back to the players as well when they give it to you. So I quite like that. I'm a bit of a talker on the pitch. Yeah. And I like players to talk to me, not scream and shout at me, but I prefer players to engage with me and ask me a question. If I give them an answer they don't agree with, them fine. But I would prefer that kind of conversation. Premier League can be a little bit harder because of language and obviously because of the speed of the game as well.
Yeah, I think that's true, actually. Yeah, I think even going down to sort of, amateur football where, I would play and the other, my friends and all of that, even then it's just that dialogue, isn't it? I think that you just maybe sometimes just want to what's the word? just have a conversation and find out maybe a bit more from them almost. And I think that's such an important thing, isn't it? Just to, you don't want to be like, it's like being back at school otherwise, isn't it? You just sort of get dictated at. And I think it's quite nice that someone like yourself is so, who's approachable and actually enjoys that, I think.
I think so. And, the thing that used to annoy me most as a player, little things when I said to the referee, how long's left, ref? And they'd say, oh, long enough.
Oh, yeah,
Just tell me. It's not a secret. To communicate with people like that. It's amazing how many footballers ask you how long's left, and there's a huge scoreboard on the side of the pitch that tells you. Amazing how many don't look at that. Just point them. It tells you on that clock there. But yeah, I think that humility as a referee is a huge thing. That being able to say you're sorry when you feel you might have made a mistake. Maybe not on a penalty kick. It's not the best time to do that during the game, but there are times that you get a gut feeling when you give a throw in the wrong way, when everybody walks one way and you're pointing the other, that you might be wrong. So being able to say sorry is one thing. Also, when players say, what's that for, ref? I don't personally see that as a challenge to my authority. They've done something wrong, and I've said that they've done something wrong. Put that back into a classroom perspective. If you put a cross on a kid's paper because they got it wrong, and they ask you to explain why it's wrong, and you refuse to tell them, they'll never learn. So by asking me what's wrong with that, well, this is what happened, and this is what that's the best way that you can engage with a player, and just say, maybe don't try to do that again. So that communication is a massively important thing in refereeing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I never actually, the way you sort of frame that, then, like you say about in a school perspective, I think that's fascinating. Actually, really interesting when you think of it like that. I think that's really, really, really interesting on that front. Just going back a little bit quickly, Bobby. In terms of you, the player, then, would you like to tell us a bit about that sort of? Where, I know you said you played, but like, what positions did you play? Was there a point where you thought you might make it, or were you sort of, in that sense? So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I was a centre forward by trade. I still hold my junior club's goal scoring record as a youth player.
Right.
For goals in a season. I'm still there at 91. My record's still not been broken.
Blimey, that's incredible, that.
It was like Division 9 or something.
No.
We were a decent team, and I'd like to think I was a decent player. So I was much taller than most kids my age when I was 13, 14. So that probably gave me a physical advantage on that. I went and played academy football. I went to Leeds and I went to Barnsley as a kid. And you know what? It's easy to say, oh yeah, I was unlucky, I didn't do this, I got injured. The fact was, I didn't progress at the same speed as some of the guys that I played with. So I know at Barnsley, I was with Drew Talbot. Drew ended up at Sheffield Wednesday, Wednesday, and then Chesterfield, I think Drew's at now. Nicky Rowe, who went on to play for Preston. I didn't develop at all as quickly as these guys were developing at a sort of crucial age at 14, 15-year-old. I don't know what level I would have played at. I'd like to think that I could have played. I don't think I would have played in the Football League. I think that's pretty clear to me. As much as I talk about self-confidence, I scored a lot of goals, but confidence was one thing that, sort of self-confidence was one thing I probably lacked a little bit as a player. Right. I know when I watched people like Nicky who played, Nicky was an incredibly sort of positive, big personality. As much as I was a big personality in my local team, I never felt I was when I went to play at that level. So maybe I had little doubts in myself. And if you have those doubts, I don't think you have any chance of making a career in football. So I probably always knew that as much as if I really worked hard and maybe just got that little bit of luck, possibly it could. But in reality, looking back now, I look at lads who are 17-year-old who were playing professional football, and I was nowhere near that. So in reality, no, I probably wouldn't have made it as a pro at that stage.
No. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how did you find the academy system? And the only reason I asked that was when I was sort of 15 or 16, I had a brief period at like Stevenage and MK Dons. I mean, I knew I was a centre-half. I knew deep down I was never going to make it. I was there more just to make up numbers. But what I mean is the mentality of it, like you say, of the self-confidence, but also the individual as part of a team. Because I suppose when you get to, say, 15 or 16, you know yourself, you're trying to get an apprenticeship somewhere. So you have to be quite selfish. And I found at times playing as a centre-half, even though I knew full well I was never probably going to get there, I was hoping the other centre-half would have an absolute stinker and we'd hope, might get beat 3-0, but I would come out looking good. It's quite a strange place to sort of be where you're an individual but part of a team. Or was it maybe different because you're a centre-forward, you're probably that position naturally lends itself to be a bit more of a selfish mentality in that sense anyway, or what do you
I think it's a fair point. I mean, I know it wasn't that I didn't want the lads to do well and I didn't want the team to do well, but I know from, when the other striker's putting 3 goals away and you're not performing, there's a part of you in your own mind that's like, this doesn't look good on me. So I'd always like to think that I've got a team ethic. I certainly took that into refereeing. I wasn't selfish in the slightest as a referee. I was always very, very much that if one of my assistants made a mistake, then that's my mistake because I lead the team. And I'll carry the can for that as a referee. So in that sense, I'm very much a team player, and maybe I lacked that selfishness a little bit that would have progressed, throughout the football ranks.
Okay, no, I think it like you say. I think sometimes even working in the school and stuff, you have to be that sort of team player, and maybe that was I'd like to think that's the undoing of me not being a professional, but I know it's probably a lot more than that. But it is. I think you do need to have that mentality, and you must have obviously seen that at the top level of the game. That no matter how many times someone maybe gives the ball away or misses a hatful of chances, it's still that confidence to keep going, I suppose, isn't it?
Correct. But, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so just moving on then, I'll let you sort of take this one in whichever way you want to go. So I sort of spoke to you before we recorded about, maybe so the whole series is about my favourite ever football match. So you obviously in the very, very unique position of obviously having been involved in levels at football at the top level of the game, the very top, and obviously and as a fan. So I normally would give people one game, but you can have a few more given the experience you've got. So if you just maybe tell us whichever way, I don't mind if you want to do as a referee first or as a football fan, but your favourite ever footbal match and like the emotions that surround it. Maybe the pre-match stuff after the game as a fan and all of that as well. So yeah, whichever sort of you want to go first.
Yeah, I've been sat thinking of this today, to be honest, and trying to work out where would I put these certain games. And I think as a fan, so my first game, I don't remember much about it. Obviously, I was a 4-year-old. So basically, once you start getting to secondary school age, that's when you start remembering games. For me, the one game that absolutely sticks out, I've got the date down here, May the 20th, 2004. Huddersfield played Lincoln City in the second leg of the playoffs. We were in the 4th level at that stage, so the old Division 3, what's now League 2. We'd gone to Lincoln and we'd beaten them away in the first leg. Got them back at home, and then conceded 2 goals very, very quickly, and everything just changed. It's the first time I've seen the stadium like properly rocking at Huddersfield,
right?
And just conceded 2, and it just took the wind out of everyone. The second half, Huddersfield went forward. Andy Booth got brought down. Penalty was given by the referee. We scored, and then I think maybe with about 10 minutes to go, really good finish. Rob Edwards for Huddersfield sticks it in from the edge of the area, and just the whole stadium just erupted and drew 2-2. It got us to the playoff final. Went down. It was at Cardiff that time, Millennium Stadium. We beat Mansfield on penalties. Ironic, really. I've been to watch Huddersfield in 4 playoff finals now. I didn't go to the one in '95 where we beat Bristol Rovers 2-1, but I've been to every one since. We've won 3 of those, and I've never seen us score a goal yet.
Right,
quite bizarre, really. We've got beat 3-0 by Peterborough, and we got demolished at Old Trafford. And then the other 3 that I've seen us win, we drew with Mansfield 0-0, won on penalties. Drew with Sheffield United 0-0, won on penalties, and drew with Reading 0-0 and won on penalties. So, yeah, it's quite a bizarre place. It's never seen us score, but seen us win 3 times. So the Lincoln one was incredible. Obviously, Reading in the playoff final. As a Huddersfield fan, to watch Chris Schindler stepping up to take that penalty and saying to the people around, hang on, if he scores this, we're in the Premier League. And as a fan to be there, that's just unbelievable. And that feeling when the ball at the back of the net, you don't lose that. You never lose that. If you're a football fan, same as watching England in the World Cup, I was as mental screaming after England as anybody else was. Because I'm a fan. I love the game at the end of the day. So as a fan, I'm probably one of those, either Lincoln or Reading in the playoffs. As a referee, it's ironic actually that you said you're from Luton, because that was probably my favourite ever game that I refereed at Luton Town.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, some years ago. And I refereed when they were in the conference. They played against Oxford at home. Both of the 2 teams were up near the top of the table. It's quite late in the season. Full house at Kenilworth Road, which is always a brilliant place to referee for atmosphere.
It's probably was going to say, sorry to interrupt. For people who haven't been there, it's got to be such a bizarre ground to go to for the first time because of where it is. The away end obviously is built into the houses. It's just such a bizarre place, to be honest, to watch football.
It is, and for a ground that has one full side of the pitch that's virtually corporate boxes, you wouldn't expect that a ground would create that kind of atmosphere. But Kenilworth Road is one of the very best in the country actually to go to.
Right.
And I just remember Oxford were winning the game 1-0. They were pretty much in charge. And then Luton got a corner. It was about 92nd or 93rd minute. And it was on the far corner where there's like a proper clock behind. And looking at the video, it's like 25-10. It's a Tuesday night. Swings the corner and they score from the corner.
Right.
So sticks the header in. Can't remember the player who's called. Pilkington, maybe? Was
yes.
Luton player?
Yeah.
Luton player. So Pilkington, I think, sticks the ball. This is a few years ago now. The place just went mental, absolutely mental. Oxford obviously just had the wind knocked out of them a bit. They kicked off. Luton got the ball, went straight down the other end, got another corner, exactly the same corner.
Right.
And I believe it was Keith Keane.
Yes, he's local as well, actually. Yeah, he's local to the area as well. So
Keith Keane sticks it in. It goes straight in from the corner, straight into the top corner. The place went wild. He jumps into the crowd, which I'm thinking, no, don't do that because it's already card.
Oh no.
So he then comes out of there, and I spoiled the party, giving him his second yellow card and red. And at that stage, when I was refereeing on the conference, I was also an assistant referee on the Premier League at the same time.
Right.
And so it's quite bizarre that you're refereeing at Tamworth on a Tuesday night, and then you're on the line at Man United on the Saturday. But at that stage, I was refereeing well that season. So if you get promoted from the conference to the Football League, you stop being an assistant. So basically, I was doing well as an assistant. There was the opportunity in the next year or so that I could go onto the international list as an assistant referee.
Right.
So the choice I had basically was, if I keep refereeing well, do I want to referee at Macclesfield Town in League 2 on a Saturday afternoon? Or do I want to stay refereeing on the conference and then running the line at Barcelona, Real Madrid, Ajax, Inter Milan on the Champions League games?
That's such a quandary, isn't it, actually?
It is. I was 24 at the time, so I was young enough to make that decision. At 34, that might have been a bit different.
Yeah.
But basically, I walked off that game at Kenilworth Road that night and went, do you know what? I want to referee. I want to be the guy who has the ball in his hand, who goes out, who if someone's taking the hinges off my door at the end of the game, it's my room that they come into, because I loved it. That buzz that I got from refereeing that game was better than any buzz that I ever got as an assistant referee. So I knew from that game at Luton Oxford, I knew then, I want to go down that route as a referee. So I gave up the Premier League as an assistant and ended up refereeing at Macclesfield Town the season after. So yeah, it wasn't a bad decision.
No, I was going to say it's quite to be honest, I think if you'd have said what was the, you look at obviously your stats of where you've refereed and stuff, what was the game that maybe turned your career? I suppose in some ways it was almost that, isn't it? And 100%. I think that's what's brilliant about, I'm sort of preaching as a converted here, but what's brilliant about English football is that because it's professional to goes down so many levels, that actually, it means so much to so many people, and the way that can springboard even from the conference, for yourself. So I think that's fascinating, really.
Yeah, I know from being here in Norway now, you'll have people say, who do you support? Huddersfield. All right. Who's your Premier League team?
Right.
I don't have one. So, and they sometimes struggle to get that concept that a referee can support a team in the conference and nobody above it.
Yeah,
so again, I think that's quite unique in English football that we have that. No interest in any team in the Premier League or Championship League 1, League 2, but my team is Halifax Town. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that's a brilliant thing about the English game.
Yeah, no, I think that's fascinating. And to be honest, I think I love the two games you spoke about, both as a fan and a sort of referee. Just to sum them both sort of up, really, was the feelings after those sort of games. I know that as you weren't supporting a team when you were refereeing, but the sort of adrenaline and that. Is it quite difficult, because I remember as a football fan, after a massive game, it's almost hard to sleep at night, because of the excitement and you replay maybe like you say, the penalty shootout or the goal or whatever it is as a fan. Yeah. Do you sort of do that the same as a referee, or is the buzz a bit more as a fan than what it is as a referee, even when you have a great game like that you're involved in?
Absolutely. I mean, if Tuesday night games especially, they're a nightmare for a referee because obviously you have to drive home after the game. And you drive on your own as well. You're not allowed to travel with any of the other officials. So you're in the car on your own. So you're going through things in your head, or you're speaking hands-free with other referees that have had games. And so the game's still being discussed. And it is tough to sleep that night because no referee ever thinks about what they did really well. You always have that one in your head, a throw-in in the 32nd minute that meant nothing, but in your head you're thinking, how did I get that wrong?
Yeah.
Even if I was on a, say, Monday night game at Swansea, I wouldn't drive home then. I would stay in a hotel because it's about 5.5 hours for me to Swansea. So I'd stay over, I'd rewatch the game as soon as I got back to the hotel. I'd watch the full match because you just know that there's no way that you're going to be able to sleep. So that adrenaline does take a little bit of time to get out of the body, which is a good thing. But obviously, if you know you've made a mistake as a referee, it's not a good thing because it just plays in your head for a good few days. To be honest, we don't just forget about it. It's a bit of a professional pain, but a personal sort of feeling that you've let yourself down a little bit as well. So that can be tough.
No, so I just think it's fascinating, like you say, actually, that you almost get the same feelings from either side of the fence, really, I suppose, for want of a better phrase. I think that's fascinating. Joe, Bobby, just to sum it up, that was absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate you sort of coming on and
Pleasure.
Talking to us about that. And I think that's really, I find it fascinating to talk about, like you say, actually how much football means to referees, which I think gets lost. I mean, I had an idea of that, but just hearing it from yourself just means so much more, and actually I think, to be honest, it's put such a smile on my face that of all the games, you've refereed championship player finals, all sorts, and actually your favourite ever game was a conference game on a Tuesday night at Luton. So I think that just shows the power of football and how actually it's an amazing sport, isn't it? Obviously, but just how much it means to so many people. So yeah, but thank you so much for doing that. And you're an absolute gent, and I can't speak highly enough of you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Top man, pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.